although Microsoft only ever released the shell preview for Windows NT 3.51 but not for Windows 3.1, the community eventually stepped in. Meet Calmira, a Windows 95 UI lookalike that, using additional tools and MS-DOS 7 underneath, even becomes a total conversion to Windows 3.1, yet even supporting long file names. It's obsolete technology no one uses today, but I'll bring it back to life. I'm the vintage collector and these are my stories. The first version of Calmira 1.0 appeared in 1997. Built on Delphi, it replicated the Windows 95 UI appearance for Windows 3.1 with a desktop featuring both My Computer and even a recycle bin. The version didn't feature an installer, so I had to manually copy it over to the hard drive. To replace Program Manager by Calmira, simply edit system.ini and set the shell command to calmira.exe. Calmira brings its own set of control panels to configure the functionalities, like here for the waste bin, or the start menu editor from which you can create new menus and program launchers. It also offers functionalities for the file system integration, like the support for extended file descriptions as implemented by FreeDOS. FreeDOS by JP Software was a DOS command.com replacement which brought additional features, amongst them the capability to use file descriptions. So let's have a look at how this works using Calmira's Explorer. As you see, it somewhat mimics the original Windows 95 Explorer with the left and right hand side panes, though these were implemented in separate detached windows as shown. As you can see here, while I seem to be able to create a long file name, Calmira will not be able to do so as we're running on DOS without long file name support. So we're still restricted to the 8.3 file name convention. But as mentioned, one can add those FreeDOS compatible file descriptions to mimic the long file names and have them appear in the Explorer. These would then also show up on the CLI when using FreeDOS instead of command.com. Aside from that, Calmira implements its own design language, which is also reflected here on the file copying dialog, still giving it an overall more modernish appearance. What it doesn't do, however, is to deal with the window decorations, which are still in the default Windows 3.1 style. Also, any existing Windows applications don't benefit from Calmira's presence in any way, as shown with Windows Notepad. In addition to that, Calmira doesn't bring yet its own version of Task Manager, but still relies on the Windows default task list. Calmira was then eventually abandoned until it resurfaced in the early 2000s as Calmira II, which saw the latest release 3.3 and was a departure from the original design. Already on startup, you'll notice right away that it's more close in resemblance to the Windows 95 UI, doing away with the icon glyphs and also reflecting the Windows logo on the start menu. Also, the desktop is closer to Windows 95, even bringing the tip of the day. Release 3.3 also foreshadowed the eventual support of long file names. The Explorer was a major overhaul, doing away with the detached windows but having the navigator and the file view in a single window, very much like in the original. Weren't it for the Windows 3.1 style menu bar and the window decorations, it's already becoming harder to tell it apart, as the Windows 95 UI styling is largely upkept in almost all places. This goes as far as providing a new task manager that can be enabled by configuring taskmanager.exe in system.ini. As mentioned, Calmira 3.3 foreshadowed long file name support, and since that won't go with MS-DOS 6, I had to upgrade to a DOS supporting long file names. So I chose to go with FreeDOS 1.3. Installing Windows 3.1 was not that big an issue, though I had to replace the memory drivers to Windows' own HIMEM sys and also ifshelp.sys, and to support long filenames, enable DOS LFN in fdauto.bat. But even with that, Windows would complain to start, specifically about failing to load the LFN module, but then ultimately complaining about protected mode software already running. Alright, it's a known issue that Windows 3.1x won't run in 386 enhanced mode on older versions of FreeDOS. Although there have been some progress and even some hacks for making it work using a custom kernel version, even the FreeDOS wiki still says it's not working. That was also confirmed when trying a nightly build, which wouldn't lead me to success. I then tried the patched up kernel from 2021 and even reinstalled the non-workgroup version of Windows 3.1. But that one yielded weird errors like these, and for certain the install media used was sane. And even following the outlined changes in system.ini and Windows 3.1 finally starting up on FreeDOS, I observed more strange behavior like sudden disk corruption, to the point the virtual hard drive being totally screwed up, not even booting off anymore. That was the point when I turned my back to FreeDOS, as this doesn't seem to lead me to success and I would certainly need to invest a lot more time into this.
So you're just giving up and fleeing?
Nah, I just want a working showcase. So I went to reinstall the unofficial CDU release of MS-DOS 7.1, as at least I know this one works. Reinstalling everything was no big deal, neither was enabling the LFN DOS and then installing Calmira LFN version 3.32. Although that one was never fully completed, we get to see it offers both the 4DOS descriptions and the long file names. Here in plain DOS, we don't see any long file names yet, but let's create one and check this out, so it does actually work. You may as well notice that Calmira LFN brought an update to Calmira Explorer in that it used Windows 95 style window decorations. But that's not true for other native applications which still use the 3.1 window decorations. We'll have a look at this one again in a moment. Apparently, Calmira LFN is years old already and didn't see any further development progress. However, there's yet a new release going by the name of Calmira Reborn. This was just updated as recent as 2 years ago and fixes some issues from Calmira LFN. So far, so good.
But it still doesn't do any further about the window decorations.
Are you implying I should look into adding more Windows 95 likeness to this system? Very well. This comes in the form of a utility called Mask98, which, once installed, overrides the window decorations. At the beginning, it even overrides the default desktop with this gradient background, but this can simply be disabled by turning off the window integration for the desktop. But as you can see from here already, the context menu really looks 95 style, and that holds true for literally any of the existing applications which get this UI overhaul. And compare this again to the default looks of Calmira Explorer with Mask95 being disabled, and how it looks with Mask98 being enabled.
That's a lot of fakery.
Wait, weren't you the one? Never mind. Even the dated Microsoft work suddenly looks modernish. But here we get to see also one of the most striking issues. Even when installing an application, Calmira won't learn the new menu entries, as it doesn't hook into the program manager for the group creation. So that means I had to manually add Microsoft Works to Calmira start menu. But still, look at this. Can you tell this is not Windows 95 now? If anything, then only by the old style toolbar or maybe the file open save dialog, which still doesn't support long file names.
You certainly have a tool for that as well.
Now, on Windows 95 there was a program called Name It, which would replace said dialogs by an updated version, effectively enabling old 16-bit applications to support long file names. But apparently this is a 32-bit application which can't run on Windows 3.1x, or can it? So I simply expanded the setup files manually, because as you can see, the exes are not recognized by Windows 3.1 and will simply terminate. So I thought to be clever, as Microsoft once released Win32s, the Windows 32 subsystem for Windows 3.1, to go down that route. Maybe Name It is not that complex that it could actually run on the combination of MS-DOS 7, Windows 3.1 and Win32s.
I'm telling you, that won't work.
So I was installing the latter, and at least on the Explorer, the exe file suddenly is recognized as a Win32 executable. That's the difference. Maybe I'm...
See, I told ya.
Never mind, there's another tool to try, which is called Instant File Access, IFA for short. Let's see how this one does. Once installed, I should get a new file open save dialog, and look here at the example of Windows Notepad. It interacts just fine with the real long file name folder I created earlier on. But let's start by simply saving it with an 8.3 convention file name. That's okay. But what about the long file name? See how I'm saving it as this is a long file name.txt and how that's then shown in Calmira Explorer.
Oh, come on, this is surely just doing the FreeDOS description pseudo thing again.
Not at all. For one, when reopening this exact file in Notepad, you see it in the title bar having the 8.3 convention file name, which has the well-known tilde as typical for long file names. And look here in command.com with the dir command, where this actual file shows up with both the 8.3 convention file name, but also the real long file name. That totally works and is no fakery. So my ego was now triggered by looking around for a boot logo. Then I was simply replacing win.com by win.cnf, which resides in Windows System Directory, to get rid of the original Windows Startup logo when running win.com. After that, I was injecting this animated logo screen into c:\logo.sys in order to make use of the MS-DOS 7 animated splash screen functionality. So in the end, using MS-DOS 7, Windows 3.1, Calmira, Mask98, IFA and a custom boot logo, this ended up in a Windows 95 lookalike total conversion of Windows 3.1 that even supports real long file names. And why did I do all of this? As implied by the parallel install of DOS, Windows 3.1 and Windows 95 onto this 386 based system, I actually created a multi-boot setup that runs either Windows 95, MS-DOS 7 or DR-DOS 7 to act as a real demo and showcase system. And of course, we'll see it soon again in context of the upcoming networking series. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. I'm the Vintage Collector and this was my story for today. Thanks for watching and see you again next Sunday.